Okay, so in the earlier video that I shot, I didn't do fun with Russian state media. I thought that it was going to be, I thought I could just leave it alone, but I don't feel like I can. Um, I wanted to stay on the major theme of what we're talking about, how experts are lining up agreeing, and here's why Ukraine is going to win and Russia is going to lose. But here, I thought this was really important stuff too. So this is a Radio Free Europe article. Russian state TV presenter suspended after a disgusting call to drown Ukrainian children. And here's what he said. Krasovsky is a pro-war commentator who has been sanctioned by the European Union, was responding to an account by Russian science fiction author Sergei Lukiyenko about how, when he first visited Ukraine in the 1980s, children told them that they would live better lives if it were not for Moscow occupying their territory. His reply was, they, that is children, they should have been drowned in the river. Krasovsky said in response, just drown those children, drown them. Alternatively, he said they could be shoved into huts and burned. Okay, if you want to understand what Russians think, they think like this about Ukrainians, that they are lesser than. Now, this is the kind of thing that all around the world, soldiers think of each other. So think about the terms that are used to describe foreign soldiers. The Germans were Krauts, the Japanese were Nips, or Vietnamese were Gooks, Afghanis were Ragheads or something. So soldiers have to do that kind of thing to lessen the humanity of their opponents in order to be able to pull the trigger. This is what he's thinking about children, Ukrainian children. So that's where the mentality is. Okay, Krasovsky commented, his comment also sparked outrage in Ukraine and the West, feeding allegations that Russia is intent on eradicating Ukrainians on the whole. There is a genocidal sense toward Ukraine, like just wipe them off. It's the way that Iranians think about Israel. Okay, so that brings a response by Dmitry Koluba, who said, ban RT worldwide. That's what you side with if you allow RT to operate in your countries. Okay, Koluba's wrong, but I get it. I understand his outrage. He should be outraged about this, but don't ban RT. Watch RT and understand that this is what they're doing, that this is how they're processing. There's more to the rest of the story here, and I'm not going to go into it. You can read about this guy. He's kind of a piece of work to begin with, but it's not just him, it's the system. Let me read this about the banning of RT, and then we'll look at what RT actually had to say. Okay, so within hours, Margarita Simonyan, the channel's editor-in-chief, said that she had suspended the presenter and Anton Krasovsky because of his disgusting comments. And we'll talk about a little bit more to that story in just a moment. Here's the Dmitry Koluba's tweet. You can actually see it right here as well. Here's his actual tweet. Governments which still not have banned RT must watch this excerpt. And here's the excerpt. This is what you side with if you allow RT to operate in your countries. Aggressive genocide incitement. We will put this person on trial for it, which has nothing to do with freedom of speech. Ban RT worldwide. Again, don't ban RT. I would argue if you care about Ukraine, try to watch RT to understand that side of the picture. Okay, here's what RT had to say about it. So we're going to get into some fun with Russian propaganda now. So RT suspends a host after disgusting remarks. And to their credit, they did talk about exactly what his remarks are. Krasovsky responded by saying, it's necessary to straight up drown these children. A kid that said Muscovites have occupied, you immediately throw them into the river with the turbulent current. Krasovsky added that children could still be beaten into a hut and burned. I don't know if that's a phrase, beaten into a hut, but I don't really particularly like the visual of children being beaten into a hut and burned. On Sunday night, Simonson published a statement on her Telegram channel calling Krasovsky's words wild and disgusting. Now watch how RT handles what's going on here. So it's not just, this is terrible, you're out. They start to kind of apologize incrementally for it, and just watch, okay? Perhaps Anton will explain what temporary insanity caused it. Yeah, because it's temporary insanity. It's not that he actually feels that, and how it came out of his mouth. It's hard to believe that Krasovsky sincerely believed that children should be drowned, but there's a lot of Russians that think less of Ukrainians as if they're subhuman or they're not there's a very chauvinistic attitude between Russians to Ukrainians, even the way that they think about Ukraine as little Russia. And that's because of a play on words. It means something different in Ukrainian than it does in Russian, but it sounds kind of like little Russia. Simonyan said that she is suspending his contract with the broadcaster, quote, because neither I nor the rest of RT staff can allow even the thought that one of us is capable of sharing such nonsense. Like, this isn't the only nonsense that RT shares. They share a ton of nonsense constantly. They're the mouthpiece of their state media that's a mouthpiece for Putin. For the children of Ukraine, as well as the children of the Donbass and all other children, I wish that this all ends as soon as possible. Now, if she had stopped there, that would be one thing. And they can live and study in peace again, which means something different than you and I are thinking, in the language that they consider native. So even there, she's like putting in that dig about how, these Ukrainian oppressors aren't letting them speak in Russian. Well, there's a reason for that now. Okay, at any rate, so that's RT covering it. Here's some other fun with Russian state media. Russia warns France about a Ukrainian dirty bomb risk. And I talked about this in the previous video, so I'm not going to set up everything. But now that I'm assuming that you've watched that, Kyiv is preparing to detonate a, quote, dirty bomb or low-yield nuclear weapon, unquote, on its own territory, according to the Russian news agency. The goal would be to accuse Moscow of using weapons of mass destruction in a ploy to, quote, launch a powerful anti-Russia campaign, unquote. Now, there's already a powerful anti-Russia campaign, and this would be the worst possible thing that Kyiv could actually do. If they did set off something on their own territory, it would be bad because of the destruction, the fallout, everything else along those lines. But if they did do that and it was found out, they would lose their supporters in the West. The United States and Western European countries would be like, you know what? What are we defending you for? What are we supplying you, helping you with these arms to defend yourself for if you're going to be doing? So that would not work. Okay, but when Russia accuses the other side of doing things, very often that's what they're thinking about doing, so it's terrifying. The report claimed that 2 Ukrainian institutions have already been tasked with manufacturing a dirty bomb, and the work now is in the final stages. Okay, this is Russia state propaganda, state news agency, so take it with a grain of salt. A so-called dirty bomb uses conventional explosive combined with radioactive material, and while it could not rival a nuclear warhead, it could still have some significant damage. Okay, so that's another RT article. Okay, here's a third, and we'll get to another one after that. Russia is still in the top 10 for the super rich, say a study. Okay, well, that's an interesting article. Russia ranks 10th on the list of countries with the largest number of centimillionaires, those that are worth over $100 million. And so they're starting to brag about this. See, Russia's in the top 10. Okay, according to the study, there are 25,490 centimillionaires in the world. The U.S. is home to the largest number with 9,000. So of the 25,000, so multiply this roughly by 4, multiply this, United States has roughly 40% of them. 38% of the total, it says. China and India come in second and third with 2,000 and 1,132 respectively. Now, they also have terribly huge populations, so that they have a quarter of what a quarter or a tenth of what the Americans have, and they have many times the population, makes you wonder like what's going on there. But okay, UK follows in 4th place with 968. That's respectable given the size of the UK. Germany with 966, also respectable. Switzerland, Japan, Canada, Australia with these numbers as well, and then Russia bringing up the rear with 435. Now, when you consider how they got their wealth, though, that's really the trick, because the Russian oligarchs got their wealth by essentially stealing it from the public when they privatized things, and pennies on the dollar for industrial enterprises. And so 110 oligarchs own about a third of all of Russia's wealth. Okay, because they stole it. So 110, 435, that's not too far from there that are probably still an oligarchic kind of land. There's a difference between the Americans. Now, so there are some Americans who either inherited their wealth or used nefarious means to get there. But the vast majority of the Bill Gates and Steve Jobs and founders of Amazon and Google are doing it by making lives better. That's a very different way than the way that the oligarchs got there. Okay, last RT article is this. Xi reelected as Chinese Communist Party leader. I don't think that there was much of a threat that he wouldn't be reelected for a third term. I wish to thank the whole party sincerely for the trust that you have placed in us, as Xi said, promising his team would, quote, work diligently, unquote, to prove, quote, the worthy great trust of our party and our people. Some Western media reporters, or some Western media reported that who was opposed to Xi's re-election was escorted out of the Congress. So keep an eye on him. See if he's, falls off a ledge or has a heart attack or something in the next few days. Chinese media insisted that the former leader was not feeling well and had to take a rest. So yeah, there's that. Xi is the first CCCP official to rule China for more than 2 terms since Mao Zedong. So this was all, I'm sure, baked in. I can't imagine that it's just because the population love him so much. But I could be wrong. I mean, maybe I get it wrong. And if you know something about this that I don't, please leave comments below. All right. Thank you for your time. I'm sorry that I couldn't include this in the earlier video, but it just didn't seem to fit. All right, I'll see you tomorrow.